Okay, great. So welcome everybody back to the Compassionate Leaders series. I'm so excited to be here once again, and this time with a wonderful woman, Pamela Crane. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so this is going to be great. Pamela Crane is a certified yoga therapist, and she's doing a lot of work in particular these days with people around imposter syndrome and overcoming fears, building confidence, and understanding more about interoception. So we'll get into all that in just a minute.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to have you here. And my first question, as always, is can you tell us about you? What lights you up and what are you most passionate about these days?
Oh gosh, what lights me up? Being at the beach, playing with my dogs. I have three rescue dogs. Well, two rescues and a foster failure. My husband, my daughter. I have a grown daughter who lives in Spain, and just enjoying the now, enjoying the present. And we've been through a lot. And so I really just take the time whenever I can to just enjoy what's going on right now. I am also lit up by, of course, my profession. I love helping people and getting to work with people and have them see how great they actually are is just a very rewarding space for me to be in, and especially right now in this time where people are feeling a little beat up. And so it's good to it's good to kind of be in that space of let's bring the greatness back out, because it's in there. We just have to find it.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that so much. I certainly can relate. It's such I find such a blessing in being able to help people and support people in that way, especially through such challenging times. To be
Yeah.
a supporter for people is a really wonderful job.
Yeah, yeah. I was a cheerleader in high school, and I guess I'm getting back to those roots.
Yes, I love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, what is your story? Have you always been working as a certified yoga therapist and doing what you're doing now, or how did you get to be where you are now?
Yeah, I've took a lot of detours. I've done a lot of things. I worked in broadcast journalism, degree in broadcast journalism, and I worked as an actor and a performer and a dancer. I started practicing yoga in my 30s. I've suffered from fibromyalgia and some other autoimmune diseases, and started practicing yoga just as a means of trying to feel better. And I thought it was a movement practice. I didn't realize what yoga actually was. And I started noticing more and more good days and fewer bad days, and more days where I feel, oh, I think I can do this. I think I can live this life. And so, of course, like every yoga teacher I think there is, I then found this need to share these beautiful tools that were helping me really save my life. And so I felt called to share them with other people. So I did a yoga teacher training. And then a few years ago, I decided that I wanted to really kind of move that forward. And so I went to Maryland University of Integrative Health. I got a Master of Science in Yoga Therapy, which a lot of people don't even know that exists. And a lot of people don't know the difference between yoga and yoga therapy. And so through that master's degree, I really started to understand how interoception works and how we can tune into our body and notice how the things that are stressing us out or causing us fear or bothering us manifest physically within us, and emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and how we can use that information when we really tune into the body, how we can use that information to help us through these issues. And so the more I started working with people individually as a yoga therapist, I started realizing that so many people are just crippled by their fears. They're stunted. They have great ideas, they have great talents, but this fear and imposter syndrome holds them back and keeps them from moving forward. And so I decided that that really needs to just be the lane where I drive in. And so that's where I've been focusing over the last 6 months. I guess I've been really kind of focusing in that arena. And I spoke at the Embodiment Conference, which was a worldwide conference, 500,000 registrants, and on overcoming fears and imposter syndrome. And I'm happy to share that presentation with anybody who wants it. They can pop me their email or whatever. However anybody wants to do, I can share that with them. And yeah, and I'm loving this feeling of helping people find that find that inside of them, because we all have gifts, and no matter what you were told when you were a kid or in high school or by that teacher who didn't really get you, you have gifts. You just have to find them, understand that not everybody's judging you, and even if they are, that's their work. That's their work to do. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, just let yourself come on out and shine. So, yeah.
Awesome. So cool. And I'm all about that. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm all about us, getting in touch with our own inner gifts and then following our purpose, following our passions, and not letting all those fears and all that junk get in our way anymore.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
that's,
yeah, that's yoga philosophy. That's your dharma, is finding where you fit in this world. And so when I work with people, I use tools of yoga, and I sometimes I kind of hate to even say that, because people think of yoga as putting their foot behind their head, or touching their toes, and that's just one little aspect of it. And the movement can be useful, but the yoga philosophy, the yamas and niyamas, are where I really have found a lot of success for my own healing and my own personal journey of self realization. And so I'm really excited to share that with people, because I think so many people don't have an understanding of how the way we talk to ourselves matters, the way we think of other people matters, and the way we sit in this world, it matters. And so when we can do some self-study, svadhyaya, around what's affecting us and why, and how can we adjust how we think about something, or adjust the situations we put ourselves in that are causing us to feel some kind of way, then
Mhm.
we can find happiness and fulfillment, and we can further our businesses. We can really excel in all aspects of our life. How
Mhm.
we show up for ourselves is how we show up in our business, and how we show up in our world, our relationships. So, yeah, it's important to take a look at those things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like this whole, and I feel like there's so much of this going on in the world now. And that's part of what has come through this past year for a lot of people, is this real waking up to ourselves, and and learning a lot more about what's most important to us and who we are and all of these things. And I think so many of us spend many, many years of our lives just keep your head down, go to work, come home, make dinner, go to bed. Like it's just such a I don't know, like a train we get on of just going through the motions. And there really is so much more to be gleaned from our life experience. And I think that's great how you use all the philosophy from yoga, as well as the many, realms of practices that are involved too, to help people really suss that out and get the juice out of life.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One of the big exercises I do with people is a meditation, where we sort of identify what the fears are, and then we identify the strengths, and we kind of have them have a conversation. And
Mm.
that's really been meaningful for a lot of people, and diving deep in there is, I mean, sometimes it can be triggering, sometimes it can bring things up, sometimes it can be enlightening in a way where, gosh, I didn't even know I felt that way about myself, or I didn't even know I was having that conversation, or I didn't realize that I had all these strengths that I have been putting on the back burner and pushing aside because society tells me that I'm this. Well, who's to decide who you are? Who is? It's we get stuck in those modes, and I've suffered from it too. I realized, so the term imposter syndrome was actually coined in 1978 by two researchers who found that people, I don't want to go too deep into it, but it's basically when people have skills and talents, but they think that they don't, and they don't realize that just because of the way they were conditioned when they were younger. It's really prevalent in medical fields, medical students. It's prevalent in college students, and or that's where it kind of starts to show up for a lot of people. But I think that when you know what it is, oh gosh, no, I really can do this. It's just these
Mhm.
old patterns of thinking of I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not, and for me, for a long time in my life, I would say, "Oh, I can't do that. I'm not old enough. I'm not old enough." And then
Mhm.
somehow all of a sudden I got to a point where I was like, "I'm too old. I'm too old."
Yeah.
When is the right time? I'll tell you, the right time is now. It's you just have to get get past that fear and those excuses, and then just go on in. And and for me, procrastination was always a problem, and that comes from fear, the fear of putting yourself out there, the
Mhm.
fear of just doing the thing and what people will think.
Yeah,
So, yeah, but people
abs
need your gifts. They need what you have to offer, but they can't get it if they don't know you're there, or if they, if you don't put it there, they're not going to come to your house and find you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, my head just like explodes with like responses to all of that stuff. I think we'll have to do a whole nother interview session on imposter syndrome and all of that.
I can do
Because
that. I told you I can talk for hours on this stuff and geek out about
yeah.
it and the science behind it. I mean, that's what I think is really important for people to understand too, is there's a lot of scientific research behind mindfulness and breath work and meditation and visualization, and how that affects the actual DNA and the wiring of your brain, the neural uh uh what's the word? It just went out of my head. Anyway,
Like
the
neural pathways
neural
and
pathways, that's the word I was
yeah.
looking for, sorry. Yeah, yeah, and how it can affect your neural pathways, and so knowing that you have the power to change that is huge. Now, that
Yeah.
meditation doesn't make your problems go away, the bad things that are happening to you, I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and say, "Oh, just breathe it all away." That No, but if you can change the neural pathways and find different ways of thinking about things, then you find different ways to solve problems. And then does that make your life better? Yes, it does.
Mm. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's just so much that I feel is innately human to all of this. So like with imposter syndrome itself, I first learned about that in graduate school when I was in social work. And there's so much around imposter syndrome for social workers and therapists
Hmm.
who are like, oh my God, this person's life is in my hands. Like, what am I doing? But there was so much about that for me that just like bubbled out of like that's what everyone is dealing with. Like we are all imposters in our own lives, or that's how it feels so much of the time. And there's so much work to be done, self-inquiry and moving through that process like you described, getting to know our strengths, our gifts and our weaknesses, and just looking at it, we spend so much time not looking at it. And yeah,
Yeah.
so cool. So,
Yeah.
so cool.
I think it was Marianne Williamson who said, when people say, "Who am I to do this?" And she said, "Who are you not to? Somebody's going
Exactly.
to,
Right.
right? All
Yes.
these all these things people are doing, somebody did it
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
So why can't you do it? And another thing a lot of people say is, "Oh, I somebody's already doing that, so I can't do that." But they're not doing it the way you would do it. And
Right.
so what you bring to the table is important and different. And even if someone took the same exact words and content that I teach something and they taught it, it would be different. So
Yes.
don't don't let that be your deterrent or your
Mhm.
excuse or your
Mhm.
procrastination or your that's feeding your fear, and that's not going to get you anywhere. So
Yeah.
just remember that a bunch of people can do the same thing and it looks totally different, and when someone has a connection with you and the way you're doing it, then that you're what they want. It doesn't matter that someone else is doing it, has been doing it, or is going to do it, because they're even if you're the first one to do something, then everybody else is going to be doing it too.
Yeah.
So then you'll still
Gotta
have
be
other
open.
people doing it, right?
Right.
So, yeah, and it took me a long time to realize that. That is an excuse. That is a way to make yourself feel like you don't need to do whatever it is that you really want to do. And
Mhm.
then if you do some self-discovery, some svadhyaya, and work around and you come to the conclusion that that's not really what you want to do, then that's valuable too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Awesome.
So
Um,
much to talk about.
I know it's so much. I'm like, slow down, like,
I know.
stop. You'll come back. Don't worry.
I'll
Um,
come back anytime.
yeah. And because I mean, this is so much of the stuff that I talk to my clients about and all of that in like my coaching work around like self-inquiry, self-development and all of that. But it's also exactly what this whole compassionate leader series is about too, of just helping people understand that you matter, gifts matter, you have so much to give and so much to do in this world. And I like so much of me just wants to run with this subject. So we will definitely come
Yeah.
back to this.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of the work that you do, could you just like clarify? Because I know I used this word interoception and you used it too, and I know you kind of described it in the way you talked around it. But just for anyone who's like, wait, what the heck? What does that mean? Can you just define that for anybody?
Oh, sure. So my business is called Interoceptive Performance. And it's funny because I have some people who are like, I don't even know what that means. And then I have some people who are like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's so cutting edge. And I'm like, yeah, it's so cutting edge. Nobody knows what it is. But interoception is the way we sense our inner self, basically. And I'm not going to go into a big scientific definition, but it's that inner awareness, that inner sense, that felt sense. Proprioception is noticing where you are in space, noticing that my arm is here as opposed to my arm being here and me thinking it's down there. And so when the reason I am so interested in interoception is kind of like I talked about before, when we can really tune in to, oh, when I think about this, I feel it in my hip or
Mhm.
my shoulder or wherever. Then we can start to question and really maybe understand, oh, okay, this thing I'm doing, this thing I'm thinking about is causing me physical harm. Hmm. And then we go more into the why. Well, what does it feel? How does it feel if I do this? What if I move? And that's why sometimes you'll hear people say that they go to a yoga class and they started crying in Shavasana or they started crying in Pigeon. That's because we store emotions in different areas of our body, and that's kind of an oversimplified way of saying it.
Mhm.
So it's not quite that simple, but so we have these, we can store emotions in different parts of our body, so when we do certain things, move in certain ways, we can address that, and that's where kind of the movement aspect of yoga can come into play. We
Mhm.
have the breath work, we have the visualizations, meditations, even mudras, ways that you hold your hands can
Mhm.
change the energetic pathways in your body, right? And so all of that tuning in, it just gives you information. It gives you ways of determining how you might want to address something. I don't want to say treat because and we don't treat dis-ease. We address our body, we address our our suffering, and hopefully use these tools to ease that suffering, or like I said, to get information. I like to use that term because I think for a lot of us, and for me for a long time, I think we kind of lose touch with our body. We dissociate, especially people who've been through trauma. There's dissociation. And so I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I'm not a psychiatrist. But there, when we do that and we shut off, then I feel like, the body's just kind of doing whatever. And when we can tune in and be aware, and I think that's also important. So I was working with athletes and dancers and in that space, and it's also important for that because if you're tuning in and you're really paying attention to how the muscle's feeling, you're less likely to get injured because you can feel, oh, I'm at that edge, I should pull back. Whereas, you're lifting weights and you're watching the TV, or you're dancing to this music that you love so much and you're really not in the body,
Mhm.
that's when injuries can come. When we're talking about the physical use of interoception. But I use it in all the ways, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual.
Mm. Yeah. Oh,
Kind of a
so
long
cool.
definition.
No, it's great though, and it's like another one that's just like I just want to be like clapping and jumping up and down. 'Cause any of my like clients who watch this will be like, "Yes, she's talking about it." So we
Yeah.
do so much work around making this connection between our emotional being and our physical being, and how all that is tied together. And there's so much, just we do call it the work that has to get done, but there's just so much exploration and kind of unfolding that can happen when we start to really tune in and understand our body connection to the mind and the emotions and the spirit and all of that. So
Yeah.
it's so cool, so cool.
Yeah.
um so, what would you recommend for anyone who is curious to learn more about interoception, about your work, or moving through imposter syndrome, all this amazing stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, well, you can work with me if you want. I
Mhm.
have a new Facebook group started, Overcoming Fears for Confidence and Authenticity. I think it's just called, I think if you search Overcoming Fears for Confidence, you should be able to find it, or I can share the link with you and you can put it in the comments later. And you can find me at Interoceptive Performance on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. So pretty much interoceptive performance, and my website is www.interoceptiveperformance.com. So I think that's
Awesome.
everything. And if you want to email me and ask me any questions, it's info@interoceptiveperformance.com.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I mean, is there any final words, any last message that you'd like to give to everybody before we close?
Yeah, I think if everyone could just give themselves some grace and understanding that you don't have to be perfect to be valuable. You don't have to know everything to offer something. And so, if everyone can just take a deep breath, give themselves some grace, give themselves some understanding and compassion, then you can start to do the work to let yourself shine even more. But you got to start somewhere. You got to start with that grace and compassion first, I think. I know for
Yeah.
me, I had to. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Wonderful words of wisdom. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here today, Pamela. And I will certainly be looking forward to having you back for more deep dives into some of these awesome
Yeah,
subjects later on. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So for all of those of you who are watching, if you are interested in getting more connected with Pamela, I will include links in the description for this video, and she can drop more info into the comments as well. And if you want to watch more of these interviews with compassionate leaders, you can join my Facebook group, the Manifest Your Best Life, Freedom, Impact, and Abundance. And if you are considering diving into your own entrepreneurship journey as a conscious entrepreneur, I would love to support you in that process too. So please feel free to reach out anytime, and I will share all my resources with you with love. So everyone, please, as always, take good care of yourselves, and I will look forward to connecting with you soon. Bye.
Bye.